At the divorce hearing, my wife stared at the judge and said she wanted everything. The house, the cars, the savings, everything except our 19-year-old son. I told my lawyer, "Give her everything." The courtroom went silent. People thought I'd lost my mind. She smirked, thinking she'd won. But that smile vanished when my lawyer stood up and said 5 words. Her lawyer's face went white, and the entire courtroom gasped in shock. Hold on. Before I take you back to where this nightmare began, I want to know something. Where are you watching this from? What time is it right now? Are you alone, or is someone next to you? Drop a comment. Let me know I'm not talking to myself here. The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence that comes naturally, but the kind that follows a statement so unexpected that even the air seems to hold its breath. Nicole sat across the aisle in her navy blazer, her hair pulled back, tight, her jaw set. She looked at Judge Patterson and said, calm as ordering coffee, "I want everything except Connor. Everything. The house, the cars, the savings, the business, everything except our 19-year-old son, George Bennett." My lawyer leaned toward me and whispered, "Mark, you don't have to—" I put my hand on his arm. "Give her everything." His pen stopped mid-note. Across the aisle, Amanda Pierce's head snapped up. Judge Patterson's pen hovered in the air. Even the bailiff paused. "Mark," George said again, quieter. "Everything," I repeated. Nicole didn't blink. She just looked at me the way you'd look at furniture you're about to donate something you once needed, but don't anymore. But that moment didn't start there in that Indianapolis courtroom on a cold January morning. It didn't start when she filed the papers or when she moved into the guest room. It didn't even start the day she told me she wanted a divorce. It started 8 months earlier. My name is Mark Brennan. I'm 58 years old. For 30 years, I've been a building inspector for the city of Indianapolis. My job is simple. I walk through homes looking for things that don't belong. Cracks in the foundation, faulty wiring, load-bearing walls that have been compromised. Violations that, if left unchecked, can bring the whole structure down. I was married to Nicole Harper for 27 years. We raised our son Connor in a 3-bedroom house on Kingsley Drive. Nicole ran a home staging business. I worked steady hours, came home for dinner most nights, and on Sundays I made pancakes for Connor while Nicole slept in. From the outside, we looked fine, stable. The kind of couple you'd see at the hardware store on a Saturday morning. But I've learned something in 30 years of inspecting buildings. The most dangerous damage is the kind you can't see. The crack behind the drywall, the slow rot in the beams. By the time it shows on the surface, the collapse has already begun. I'm methodical, patient. I don't jump to conclusions. I document everything, and when I love someone, I love them completely. I love Nicole that way. I love the life we built. And I love Connor more than anything I'd ever inspected, measured, or certified in my entire career. Connor was 19, a sophomore at Ivy Tech Community College studying business. Quiet, thoughtful, more like me than Nicole. He had her drive, though her ambition. We'd set up a college fund for him when he was born, $41,200. It wasn't Ivy League money, but it was enough. Nicole and I didn't fight much. We didn't raise our voices, but somewhere along the way the foundation shifted. I didn't notice it at first. A late meeting here, a business trip there. She started looking at her phone more, smiling at messages I couldn't see. I told myself it was work. I wasn't imagining things. It started 8 months before that courtroom. It was 2:15 in the morning, and I woke up thirsty. The house was dark, except for a faint glow coming from the kitchen. I walked down the hallway in my socks, the hardwood cool under my feet, and saw Nicole standing by the counter, her back to me, her phone screen casting a pale blue light across her face. She was smiling. I didn't say anything. I just stood there in the doorway and watched her delete type again. Her fingers moved fast, like she was talking to someone she knew well. Someone she was comfortable with. Someone who made her smile at 2:15 in the morning while her husband slept 10 feet away. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. Then I turned around, walked back to bed, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. That was the moment I realized something in the structure had failed, and what I saw in the weeks that followed would unravel 27 years of marriage, one thread at a time. 8 months earlier, I woke up at 2:15 in the morning because my bladder no longer respected sleep schedules. That's what happens at 58. I swung my legs out of bed, careful not to disturb Nicole. The room was dark, except for the faint glow of the alarm clock on her nightstand. I stood stretched and padded out into the hallway in my boxers and undershirt. The hardwood was cool under my bare feet. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet you only get in the middle of the night when the world outside has finally stopped moving. I passed the framed photos on the wall. Connor at 6 missing his 2 front teeth. Connor at 12 holding a fish we'd caught at Geist Reservoir. Nicole and me on our wedding day, both of us so young we looked like kids playing dress-up. I was halfway to the bathroom when I saw it. A pale blue glow coming from the kitchen. I stopped. For a second I thought maybe I'd left the TV on, or Connor had come home late and was making a snack. But Connor was at his mom's parents' place for the weekend, and the TV was in the living room. I walked toward the light. Nicole was standing by the counter, her back to me, her phone held close to her face. She was wearing the oversized Colts t-shirt she always slept in her hair, loose around her shoulders. Her thumb moved fast across the screen, typing, pausing, typing again, and she was smiling. I stood in the doorway just outside the light and watched. She didn't hear me. She was too focused. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, deleting something, rewriting it, sending it. Then she waited, staring at the screen. A few seconds later, her smile widened. I took one step closer, just close enough to see over her shoulder. The contact name at the top of the screen was a single letter D. The messages scrolled up fast, but I caught fragments. Can't wait to start our new life. Once you're free, you won't have to drag that dead weight around anymore. My chest tightened. My pulse hammered in my ears. Nicole typed something back, her fingers moving so fast I couldn't read it. Then she pressed send, held the phone to her chest, and let out a soft, satisfied breath. The kind of breath you make when something good is about to happen. I stepped back into the shadows, slowly, quietly. My hand found the doorframe to steady myself. She didn't turn around. I walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and flipped on the light. The brightness hit me like a slap. I gripped the edge of the sink and stared at my reflection. Crow's feet at the corners of my eyes, gray creeping in at the temples, shoulders that used to be broader. A face that suddenly looked older than 58. Dead weight. I turned on the faucet, splashed cold water on my face, and stood there dripping over the sink for a full minute. Then I dried off, turned off the light, and walked back to bed. Nicole came back 20 minutes later. I heard the soft creak of the floorboards, felt the mattress dip as she slid under the covers. She smelled like lavender lotion and lies. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my heart still pounding. She shifted beside me, her breathing slow and even, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just been planning a future that didn't include me. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just lay there counting the cracks in the plaster above me, the same cracks I'd been meaning to patch for 3 years. The next morning, I didn't confront her. I didn't ask who Dee was or what our new life meant, or why she thought I was dead weight after 27 years. I've been in enough homes where people panic when you point out a crack. They argue. They make excuses. They slap cheap spackle over it and hope it holds. It never does. The leak always gets worse. So I did what I always do. I started inspecting. Inspecting your own life is harder than inspecting someone else's house. You don't want to see the rot. But once you start looking, you can't close your eyes. The month after I saw Nicole with her phone, I started paying attention. Not in an obvious way. I didn't follow her, didn't check her messages, didn't ask questions. I just watched. The way I'd watch a foundation settling, waiting to see which way the crack would run. Nicole's business had always been part of our lives. Home staging. She'd take furniture, couches, lamps, dining sets, and arrange them in empty houses that were up for sale. Make the place look lived in, warm, the kind of home people could imagine themselves in. Realtors loved her. She'd charge $1,500 to $3,000 per staging, depending on the size of the house. The furniture was supposed to come back when the house sold. It never did. At first I didn't think much of it. A lamp here, a side table there. She said she was building inventory. I believed her. But that month things started disappearing faster. My grandmother's quilt, the one she'd made by hand in 1972, vanished from the linen closet. Nicole said she'd staged a farmhouse in Carmel and needed something with vintage charm. The quilt never came home. The dining chairs I'd refinished by hand, sanding them down in the garage over 3 weekends, disappeared one afternoon while I was at work, replaced by 4 cheap ones from a discount furniture store, then the armchair. Connor and I went to AutoZone one Saturday to pick up an oil filter. We were gone maybe 40 minutes. When we got back, my armchair, the one I'd sat in every night for 15 years, was gone. In its place was a flimsy recliner that looked like it came from a clearance aisle. Connor stood in the doorway, staring at the empty spot where the chair used to be. "Where's the armchair?" Nicole didn't even look up from her laptop. "Staging a property in Broad Ripple. High-end client. I'll bring it back next week." "You said that about Grandma's quilt." "Connor don't start." He looked at me. I saw it in his eyes, that quiet question he didn't want to ask out loud. I gave him a small nod. Let it go. He went upstairs without another word. I walked into the garage that night after Nicole had gone to bed. Boxes lined the walls, all labeled in her handwriting, "Staging," "Fountain Square," "Staging," "Fisher's," "Staging," "Greenwood." I opened one. Inside were picture frames. Throw pillows, a set of kitchen towels I'd bought Nicole for Christmas 2 years ago. I opened another box. More of our things. A lamp from Connor's old room. The wooden cutting board my father had made. A set of books from the living room shelf. She wasn't staging homes. She was staging our home, piece by piece. Stripping it down, moving it out. I checked our joint bank account that night on my laptop. We'd had $12,000 in there 3 months ago. Now there were $4,200. I scrolled through the transactions. Withdrawals. Cash. Transfers to an account I didn't recognize. I sat there in the dark garage, staring at the screen, my breath fogging in the cold air. It wasn't just the armchair. It wasn't just the quilt or the dining chairs or the money. It was everything. She was dismantling our life one piece at a time and calling it business. But then I saw it. Not at 2:15 in the morning. Not in secret text messages. I saw it in the one place you can't lie to a man like me, the paperwork. The college fund statement arrived in the mail on a Thursday. I got home early after a field inspection, an old duplex with a basement that smelled like wet cardboard and broken promises. I walked in through the garage, tossed my clipboard on the workbench, and found the envelope sitting on the kitchen counter with the rest of the mail. It was thin, the kind of envelope that usually just holds a summary. I opened it while standing at the counter, still wearing my work boots. The balance was wrong. I stared at the number. Read it again. Then I flipped to the transaction page. Transfer out. 41,200. Date March 14th. Authorized by N. Brennan. I stood there, the papers shaking in my hand, my pulse hammering in my ears. $41,200 gone. My first thought, stupid, desperate, was that it was a mistake. A computer glitch. Someone had typed the wrong account number. But the date was 3 weeks ago, and the authorization was clear. N. Brennan. I pulled out my phone and called the investment company from the truck sitting in the driveway with the engine still running. The woman on the line was polite, professional, unhelpful. "Yes, Mr. Brennan, the transfer was authorized by your wife on March 14th. It went to a business account. Everything was in order." "What business account?" "I'm sorry, sir, I can't disclose that without Mrs. Brennan's permission." I hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, my knuckles white. Then I got out, walked into the garage, and sat down on an overturned bucket, the same bucket Connor used to drag around when he was 5, handing me screws while I fixed the lawnmower. I taught him how to use tools in this garage, how to measure twice and cut once, how to tighten a bolt without stripping the threads. I showed him at 5, at 10, at 17. Patient, deliberate, the way my father had shown me. $41,000. We'd started that fund the week he was born. $200 a month for 19 years. Every birthday, every Christmas we added a little more. It wasn't Harvard money, but it was enough. Enough for Ivy Tech. Enough so he wouldn't have to work full-time and go to school full-time. Enough so he could just be a kid for a little while longer. I almost cried. Right there on that bucket in the garage that still smelled like motor oil and sawdust. But then something inside me went cold. Hard. She won't win like this. I'd spent 30 years inspecting buildings. I knew how structures failed. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual. One compromised beam. One ignored crack. One decision to patch instead of repair. And then one day the whole thing comes down. I heard the front door open. Nicole's heels clicked across the tile, confident, sharp, unbothered. I slid the statement back into the envelope and stood up. Not because I was afraid, but because for the first time I understood exactly what she was doing. She wasn't leaving this marriage. She was dismantling it, piece by piece, and I couldn't stop it by yelling. I couldn't stop it by confronting her. I could only do one thing. Stop protecting her from her own choices. Step back and watch. I called George Bennett the next morning, not because I wanted a fight, but because I needed to know how to protect my son without destroying myself. We met at a small diner off Broad Ripple Avenue. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since dawn, and waitresses who called you Hon, whether you liked it or not. George was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of black coffee and a folder on the table in front of him. He stood when he saw me. We shook hands. George was 62, retired Army, a divorce lawyer for 20 years. We'd met at the VFW 5 years ago, bonded over bad jokes and worse beer. He had kind eyes and a firm handshake. The kind of guy you wanted in your corner. "Mark," he said, sliding back into the booth. "Thanks for coming." I sat down across from him. The waitress came by, refilled his coffee, poured me a cup without asking. I wrapped my hands around it, but didn't drink. "Tell me what's going on," George said. So I did. Calmly, no emotion, just the facts. 27 years of marriage, furniture disappearing for a staging business that never brought anything back, a joint account drained from $12,000 to $4,000, and $41,200. Connor's college fund transferred out 3 weeks ago without my knowledge. George didn't interrupt. He just listened, his pen moving across a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set the pen down and leaned back. "We can fight this. You've got leverage." "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I need to protect my son, legally." George studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "If you push back hard right now, she'll dig in. There'll be motions, delays, legal fees. She'll bleed you dry before you ever see the inside of a courtroom. And if I don't do anything, then you could lose everything." I looked down at my coffee. "Losing everything doesn't mean everything, as long as Connor's okay." George tilted his head. "You're planning something." I met his eyes. "I'm going to document. Watch. Let things play out." He was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled small, knowing. "You're going to let her think she's winning. I'm going to let her make her own choices, and I'm going to write them all down." George leaned forward. "All right. Then we stay quiet. No accusations, no drama. We document, and we wait." "How long?" "Until she's done, until she's taken everything she thinks she wants. And then we show the judge exactly what she did?" I nodded. George slid the legal pad across the table. "Write down everything. Dates, times, what disappeared bank statements, anything unusual. You don't fight this with emotion. You fight it with facts." I picked up the pen. I'd spent 30 years documenting other people's problems. Cracks in foundations, faulty wiring, violations that could bring a house down. It was time to document my own. But this time I wasn't just identifying the problem. I was building a case. The waitress came by again, topped off our coffee. George looked at me across the table, his expression steady. "One more thing," he said. "When this goes to court, you need to decide what you're really fighting for." "Connor," I said without hesitation. George nodded. "Then that's what we protect. Everything else is just noise." 3 weeks after I met George, I found Nicole's old laptop in the garage. She'd forgotten it when she was clearing out staging supplies. She hadn't logged out of Facebook. It was late, past midnight. Connor was asleep upstairs. Nicole was at a client meeting that wouldn't end until morning. I sat on that overturned bucket in the garage, the laptop balanced on my knees, the glow of the screen cutting through the dark. Her inbox was open. Hundreds of messages, all to the same person. Derek Shaw. I didn't hack anything. I didn't break any passwords. She'd left it open, so I read, and I took screenshots of everything. "Can't wait to start our new life together. Once you're free, you won't have to carry that dead weight anymore. I've been so lonely since my divorce 2 years ago. You're the first person who's made me feel alive again." There it was, that phrase, the one I'd seen glowing on her phone at 2:15 in the morning, but now I knew who'd written it. Derek Shaw, the man Nicole thought was her future. I sat there for a long time, staring at the words on the screen. Then I did what I do best. I looked for the cracks. I opened a new tab and searched his name. Derek Shaw, real estate agent, Indianapolis metro area. His professional page came up first, clean headshot, 5-star reviews, listings in Carmel and Fishers. He looked like every other realtor. Confident smile, expensive suit, the kind of guy who shook your hand too hard and called you buddy. But then I found his personal profile, the one Nicole had probably never seen, because it was public, and it told a very different story. Profile picture, Derek Shaw, standing on a beach with his arm around a woman blonde, smiling, mid-40s. Two teenagers stood in front of them, grinning at the camera. Captioned 20 years with this amazing woman family trip to Cedar Point with Emily and Jake. Blessed. Posted 3 weeks ago. I scrolled down. More pictures. Derek and Jennifer at a wedding. Derek and the kids at a Colts game. A family photo in front of a house. 8934 Creekwood Lane, Carmel, Indiana. Relationship status married since 2004. I leaned back, the laptop still glowing in my lap. Derek Shaw wasn't divorced. He'd never been divorced. He had a wife, Jennifer. 2 kids, Emily 15 and Jake 12. A house in the suburbs. A life Nicole didn't know existed. And he'd told her he'd been lonely for 2 years. That he was ready to start over. That she was the one. I sat there in the cold garage, my breath fogging in the air, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. Nicole had walked away from 27 years for a man who was lying to her. And she was lying to me at the same time. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed, not anymore. I felt something closer to relief, because now I understood exactly what I was dealing with. I saved everything to a USB drive. The messages, the screenshots, Derek's public profile, his address, his family photos, all of it. I closed the laptop and sat there in the dark for a while, listening to the furnace kick on in the corner. I wasn't going to fight Nicole in court. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I was going to let her have exactly what she wanted. Because sometimes the best way to stop someone is to let them keep going. I'd spent 30 years documenting structural damage, finding the weak points, writing the reports. This was my report, and it was just getting started. After discovering Derek, I turned my attention to the business. If Nicole was hiding a boyfriend, what else was she hiding? Over the next 2 weeks, I investigated, not as a husband, as an inspector. I started with the storage facility. Nicole had been paying monthly rent for over a year, not cheap. I found the address on a bank statement and drove out there one afternoon after work. East Indianapolis, industrial area. Rows of corrugated metal buildings, chain-link fences, cracked asphalt. The kind of place where people stored things they didn't want anyone to see. I walked the perimeter, didn't go inside, didn't need to. The zoning sign out front said, industrial use only. But Nicole was running a commercial staging business out of it. That was a violation. And the fire code placard on the building was outdated, expired 2 years ago. I took photos, wrote it down in my notebook. Potential violation estimated $12,000 in fines if discovered. I didn't report it. I didn't call anyone. I didn't break any rules. I just documented it, because that's what inspectors do. Next, I found Nicole's iPad on the kitchen counter. She'd left it open. Her email was right there. I didn't hack it. I just read what was already on the screen. Vendor invoices, dozens of them, all overdue. Overdue 90-plus days, 8th hour 400. Final notice, 12th hour 200, preparing to file suit, $13,500. I scrolled through them, taking photos with my phone. Furniture suppliers, fabric vendors, delivery companies, all waiting for payment that never came. Total unpaid more than $34,000. Then I pulled up her business tax returns. I'm not an accountant, but I've filed my own taxes for 30 years. I know what legitimate business expenses look like. Nicole's didn't. Deductions for meals that never happened. Mileage claims that didn't match her actual driving. Equipment purchases with no corresponding receipts. The IRS doesn't miss things like this. They're just slow. I ran the numbers. Conservative estimate $19,200 in back taxes owed. I wrote it all down. Added it to the spreadsheet I was building on my laptop. Every figure sourced. Every date documented. Then I checked the county court records online. Public information, anyone could access it. 3 small claims lawsuits filed against N. Harper Staging LLC in the last 8 months. All from clients. Same story every time Nicole took a deposit, promised staging services, and never delivered. I saved the case numbers, printed the filings, added them to the USB drive. More than $65,000 in liabilities, and Nicole had no idea. She was too focused on building her new life with Derek to realize she was building it on sand. I sat at the kitchen table that night, the house quiet. Connor asleep upstairs, Nicole at another client meeting. The spreadsheet glowed on my laptop screen. Unpaid vendors, $34,000, back taxes, $19,200, storage facility violations, $12,000 potential. Total $65,200 plus. I had everything George needed. Business liabilities, tax debt. zoning violations, all of it legal, all of it documented, all of it tied to the business Nicole was about to demand ownership of in the divorce. But there was still one more piece. The college fund. Connor's $41,200. It hadn't vanished into thin air. It had gone somewhere, and I had a feeling I knew exactly where and to whom. I opened a new tab and searched for business registrations in Marion County. It took me 10 minutes to find it. D&N Staging Ventures, LLC, registered 4 months ago. Co-owners Nicole Harper and Derek Shaw. There it was. The money hadn't disappeared. It had been invested. In their future. Following money is easier than people think. It leaves the trail account numbers, transfer dates, recipient names. After 30 years of tracing evidence on paper, I knew how to follow the numbers. With Derek's identity documented and the business liabilities recorded, I traced the final piece. Late at night, at the kitchen table, bank statements spread across the surface. Laptop open. Coffee gone cold in the cup beside me. I'd requested detailed statements from the investment company. Legal right as a joint account holder. They'd sent them within 3 business days. The transfer trail was clear. February 14th. Ironic. Valentine's Day. Amount $41,200. Row. From Connor Brennan College Fund to D&N Staging Ventures. LLC account holders. Nicole Harper. Derek Shaw. I pulled up the business account activity. Nicole had given me access months ago when she'd set it up back when she'd still pretended it was our investment. She'd never revoked it. February 14th. Deposit. $41,200. February 18th. Multiple small transactions. 2,400 furniture purchases. March 3rd. Cash withdrawal. 20 hours. Ibizonza. Authorized by Derek Shaw. Signature only. Remaining balance $10,800 spent on various business expenses. I sat back in the chair staring at the screen. Derek had taken $28,000 in cash. Nearly 2/3 of Connor's college fund. Gone. Untraceable. Maybe he'd spent it on his real family. Jennifer and the kids. Maybe he'd taken Nicole on a weekend trip and told his wife it was a business conference. Maybe he'd bought something he couldn't explain any other way. It didn't matter. What mattered was, this Derek Shaw had stolen my son's future. Not just Nicole, though she'd handed him the keys. But Derek had walked through the door, smiled, signed his name, and walked out with $28,000 that didn't belong to him. And Nicole still didn't know he was married. I added everything to the USB drive. Then I created a summary document. Professional. Clean. The kind of report I'd file after a building inspection. Exhibits. Harper Brennan Divorce Case Section. A business liabilities. Unpaid vendor. Invoices $34,000. Back taxes. Owed. Estimated $19,200 storage facility. Violations, potential fines, $12. Sur zero. Total, $65,200 plus. Section B. Fraudulent transfer of protected funds. Connor Brennan College. Fund $41,200 transferred without co-account holder knowledge. Transferred to D&N Staging Ventures. LLC co-owners, Nicole Harper. Derek Shaw. Cash withdrawal by Derek Shaw. $28,000. March 3rd. Section C. Third-party involvement. Derek Shaw, age 45. Real estate agent, marital status. Married to Jennifer Shaw since 2004. Children. Emily 15, Jake 12. Residence 8934 Creekwood Lane, Carmel. Indiana relationship with Nicole Harper. Undisclosed affair. Business partner. I saved the document. Labeled the USB drive for George. Evidence documentation. Then I sat there for a long time staring at it. This wasn't just about the divorce anymore. It wasn't about Nicole leaving or the furniture disappearing or even the college fund. It was about Connor. It was about making sure that when this was over, my son had a future, even if I had to lose everything to give it to him. I picked up my phone and called George. 10 o'clock at night. Late, I knew. But he answered on the second ring. Mark, I need to see you tomorrow morning. I'm done documenting. What did you find? I looked at the USB drive on the table. Weeks of work, hundreds of documents, the whole ugly truth. Everything, I said. I found everything. There was a pause. Then George's voice steady and certain. Bring it in. It's time. George's office smelled like old leather and strong coffee, the kind of place where problems got solved, not ignored. I walked in at 8 in the morning, the USB drive in my pocket, feeling like a man who'd finally found the right tool for the job. George was already at his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, a mug of black coffee steaming beside him. "Mark," he said, standing, "you sounded urgent on the phone." I sat down across from him and slid the USB drive across the desk. "I need you to tell me if this is legal." He picked it up, turned it over in his hand, then plugged it into his laptop. The screen lit up. 3 folders. Folder 1, Business Liabilities. Folder 2, Derek Shaw, Investigation. Folder 3, Money Trail. George opened the first folder. His eyes widened. "Mark, you've been busy." He scrolled through the vendor invoices, the tax discrepancies, the storage facility violations, 34,000 in unpaid debts, 19,200 in back taxes, 12,000 in potential fines. "This is thorough," he said quietly. He opened the second folder. Screenshots from social media. Derek's public profile, the family photos, Jennifer Shaw, the kids, the house in Carmel, the wedding anniversary post from 3 weeks ago. George leaned back in his chair. "Your wife thinks he's divorced." He told her he was. George's jaw tightened. He didn't say anything. Just opened the third folder, the college fund transfer, the business account activity, the $28,000 cash withdrawal, Derek's signature, alone. George stared at the screen for a long time. Then he looked up at me. "He took your son's future." And Nicole let him. George closed the laptop and took off his glasses. He rubbed his eyes, then set the glasses on the desk. "Everything here is legal," he said. "Public records, joint account access, social media profiles. You didn't hack anything. You didn't break any laws. You documented. That's what I do." "So what's the play?" I leaned forward. "We let her ask for everything, the house, the business, the cars, all of it. And the liabilities. Come with it. She wants the business. She gets the debts, the tax problems, the violations, all $65,000 of it." George smiled small knowing. "And Derek, we don't tell her he's married, not yet. Mark, let her find out on her own after she's signed, after there's no going back." George studied me for a long moment. "That's cold." "That's fair. She made her choices. She can live with the consequences." He nodded slowly. "All right. Then we file quietly. No drama. No accusations. We agree to her terms. Everything except Connor. Custody goes to me. Full custody. She can have visitation if she wants it. But Connor stays with you. That's all I need." George leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "Mark, I have been doing this for 20 years. This is the most thorough client documentation I've ever seen. You're not playing checkers. You're playing chess." "No," I said. "I'm just doing what I've always done. I find the problems. I write them down. I file my report. And you make sure the right person pays for it. The right person." George and I spent the next hour drafting the settlement exhibits. Every debt, every violation, every dollar Derek had stolen, all tied to the business Nicole was about to demand ownership of. When we were done, George pushed the stack of papers across the desk. "She'll sign to get everything she wants." "Yes, and everything that comes with it." I picked up the documents. They felt solid, complete, like a foundation that wouldn't crack. "That's the idea." 3 days after I met with George, Nicole made her move. She came home at dinner time, unusual since she'd been avoiding us for weeks, and announced she wanted a divorce like she was announcing a new business venture. Connor was at the kitchen table doing homework. I was at the stove stirring pasta. Nicole walked in, didn't take off her coat, didn't sit down. "I need to talk to both of you." I turned off the burner. Connor looked up from his textbook. Nicole stood there, arms crossed, her expression flat. "I'm not happy. I want more from my life. I'm filing for divorce and I'm not going to apologize for it." I nodded. "Okay." She blinked, surprised I wasn't fighting. "I want the house, the cars, the joint accounts. You can have your pension." "All right. And Connor," she glanced at him like he was a piece of furniture she was deciding whether to keep. "Connor's basically grown. He can stay with you." Connor's pen stopped moving. I didn't say anything. I just watched. Connor set the pen down slowly. He looked at his mother. "What about my college fund?" Nicole waved a hand. "What about it?" "It's almost empty. There was over $40,000 in it. Where did it go?" Her expression didn't change. That was an investment. It'll come back. That was my money. For my future. Nicole sighed like he was being unreasonable. Connor, don't be dramatic. It was your parents' money. I used it for the business. You'll figure out college. Every kid does. You can take out loans like everyone else. Connor stared at her. His face went pale. Mom, how could you... I don't owe either of you an explanation anymore. My lawyer will handle the details. She turned and walked out. The front door closed behind her. Not slammed, just closed. Like she was leaving a client meeting, the kitchen was silent. Connor sat there staring down at his textbook, but I knew he wasn't seeing the words. His hands were shaking. I turned off the stove, walked over, and sat down across from him. She took my college fund, he whispered. I know. He looked up at me, his eyes red. You knew. I found out a few weeks ago. What are we going to do? I reached across the table and put my hand over his. We're going to be okay. I promise. Trust me. Connor nodded, but he didn't say anything. He just sat there staring at the table, trying not to cry. I stayed with him until he was ready to go upstairs. Then I sat alone in the kitchen for a long time, listening to the house settle around me. That night, after Connor had gone to bed, I sat alone in the garage. The same garage where I'd first seen the college fund statement, where I'd almost broken, where I'd decided not to fight, not with anger. Nicole had just shown Connor exactly who she'd become. A woman who valued empty houses more than her son's future, who could walk away from 19 years of motherhood, like canceling a subscription. George had asked if I was sure about the strategy, about giving her everything. Now, sitting in the cold dark, I'd never been more certain. Because Nicole didn't just want everything. She'd already taken everything that mattered to her. The house, the money, the imagined future with Derek, what she didn't know. Everything has a price. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. Nicole's lawyer sent the settlement draft 5 pages of legal language that said, Nicole gets the assets, Mark gets Connor. I read it 3 times. Then I signed every page and wrote a small note in the margin. See attached exhibits. George called an hour later. You're sure? Attach the exhibits. Done. Court date's set. 2 weeks. I walked through the house that night. It was already emptying. Nicole had been taking things steadily, staging her exit the way she staged houses for clients. The living room, the cheap replacement recliner sagging in the corner. The dining room, a folding table, plastic chairs. Connor's room, a mattress on the floor, textbooks in boxes. Nicole's office, bare walls, empty shelves. I went to the garage and started packing my tools. The hammer with the chipped handle. The level I'd used on hundreds of inspections. The worn leather tool belt my father had given me when I turned 30. Connor came down to help. He picked up a wrench, turned it over in his hands. You taking all this? Yeah, I'll need them. For what? I looked at him. For whatever comes next. He nodded and kept packing. Later I stood in the kitchen doorway, looking at the inside of the frame. Pencil marks ran up the wood, fading with age. Connor, 6 years old, 3'8". Connor, 10 years old, 4'5". Connor, 14 years old, 5'7". Connor, 17 years old, 6'1". I ran my thumb over the highest mark. Connor appeared beside me, carrying a box. You're not taking that with us, are you? He asked quietly. No, it's part of this house. Connor set the box down and stood there, staring at the marks. Some things have to stay where they were made. I turned and put my hand on his shoulder. Yeah, but the things that matter come with us. He looked at me, understanding. That night we ate pizza, off paper plates, sitting on the garage floor. Connor was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Dad, are you sure about letting Mom have the house, the cars, everything? I looked at my son, 19 years old, about to lose the only home he'd ever known. I'm sure about you, I said. That's all I need to be sure about. Connor nodded. He believed me. The morning of the court date, I locked the front door for the last time and left the keys on the kitchen counter. 27 years in this house. Connor's first steps, his first day of school, his first heartbreak, all of it here. But a house is just wood and walls. What makes a home is the person walking out beside me. I drove to Marion County Courthouse with Connor in the passenger seat. He'd asked to come to see it through. I'd agreed. Dad, he said as we pulled into the parking lot, whatever happens today? Yeah, thank you for not giving up. I looked at my son, 19 years old, almost a man, but still my boy. I'm not giving up, I said. I'm letting go. There's a difference. He didn't understand. Not yet. But he would. We walked into the courthouse together. Nicole was already inside. George was waiting at the door, holding a leather folder. He looked at me, then at Connor, and nodded. Ready? I looked at the courthouse doors. Beyond them, Judge Patterson's courtroom, the settlement, the exhibits. Everything I'd documented for 2 months, everything Nicole didn't know was coming. Yeah, I said. It's time. The courtroom smelled like old paper and floor polish, the kind of smell that never leaves no matter how many cases pass through. I'd been in this building before for permit hearings, but sitting there that morning felt different. This wasn't about a roofline. This was my life about to change forever. The room was arranged simply. Mark and George at the table on the left. Nicole and Amanda Pierce at the table on the right. Connor sat in the gallery behind me. I glanced back once. He nodded. I'm here, Dad. Judge Patterson entered. We stood, then sat. He was in his mid-60s, gray hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked at the file in front of him, then at us. We're here to finalize the dissolution of marriage between Mark Brennan and Nicole Harper. His voice was steady, no inflection, just business. I've reviewed the settlement agreement. Let me confirm the terms for the record. He read slowly, methodically. The marital residence at 6742 Kingsley Drive goes to Mrs. Harper. The vehicles both go to Mrs. Harper. Financial accounts, the majority go to Mrs. Harper. All business interests, including D&N Staging Ventures, LLC, are retained solely by Mrs. Harper. Personal property divided per attached list. Custody of Connor Brennan, aged 19, primarily to Mr. Brennan by mutual agreement. Nicole's jaw tightened at the mention of Connor. Then it relaxed. She'd already moved past it. Judge Patterson looked up. Mr. Brennan, do you confirm your agreement to these terms? I stood. I do, Your Honor. Mrs. Harper. Nicole stood confident. Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked at me for a long moment. He took off his glasses. Mr. Brennan, I need to be certain you understand what you're agreeing to. You're relinquishing significant marital assets. I understand, Your Honor. Is anyone pressuring you? Do you have concerns about fairness? I looked at Nicole. She was watching me confident, almost smug. I looked back at Connor. He gave me a small nod. I turned back to the judge. No, Your Honor. No one is pressuring me. I have no concerns. The judge studied me, then nodded. All right, let's proceed with signatures. The clerk pushed the stack of documents toward me. Thick pile, pages still warm from the copier. I picked up the pen. The pen felt heavier than it should have, not because it was hard to write my name, but because of what that name used to mean. Years of building something, trying to do right, being a husband, a father, a provider. That name carried weight. Now I was signing it away, or so it seemed. I signed each page, calm, methodical. Then I slid the stack to Nicole. She reached for it eagerly, flipping through the pages, a small smile forming. She signed with a satisfied exhale, handed the stack to Amanda with a tiny victorious smile. Judge Patterson restacked the papers. Before I enter this into record, do either party have anything further? Nicole leaned back in her chair, arms crossed the smile, starting to bloom. Amanda started to shake her head. George stood, calm, professional. Your Honor, we respectfully request the court take notice of the attached exhibits, filed with the settlement agreement, as referenced in the margin notes. Silence. Nicole's head snapped toward Amanda. What exhibits? Amanda frowned. She reached for her copy, flipped to the back pages. The pages George and I had spent hours drafting. The pages she'd clearly skimmed. Her face changed. Not dramatically at first. Just a pause. A blink. The way someone looks when a number doesn't add up. Amanda, Nicole whispered, urgent. Amanda flipped another page, then another. The color drained from her face. Judge Patterson looked up from his desk. Counselor Pierce, do you need a moment to review? Amanda didn't answer. She was staring at the page in front of her, her jaw slack. Nicole leaned over, trying to see. What? What is it? Amanda turned the document toward her. I watched Nicole's eyes scan the page, then widen, then go cold. Exhibit of business liabilities. Unpaid vendor invoices $34,000. Back taxes owed. IRS $19,200 storage facility. Violations potential fines. $12,000 total liabilities. 65 bows. 200 plus. Nicole's mouth opened. No sound came out. George remained standing, his voice calm and clear. Your Honor, All liabilities are attached to the business assets, Mrs. Harper is retaining in this settlement, per Indiana law, business debts, transfer with business ownership. Amanda Pierce had been a divorce attorney for 15 years. I could see it in the way she carried herself, confident, controlled, used to winning. But in the next 30 seconds, I watched that confidence crack, like thin ice under weight. Amanda read the exhibits, her voice catching flipping pages faster. Your Honor, I need a moment to review. Nicole grabbed her arm. What? What's wrong? Amanda shook her off eyes, fixed on the pages, breathing shallow. Then she stood abruptly, the chair scraping loud. Your Honor, the attached documents show significant undisclosed liabilities tied to the business assets my client has just accepted sole ownership of. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Nicole's smile vanished. What are you talking about? Amanda turned to Nicole, eyes wide. Nicole, these reports, these obligations, they're yours now. All of them. She started reading from the exhibit's voice, shaking. Exhibit, a $34,000 in unpaid vendor invoices, multiple accounts over 90 days, overdue, some preparing to file suit. Exhibit B, $19,200 in estimated back taxes from improperly claimed business expenses flagged for audit. Exhibit C, commercial storage facility. Violations, fire code violations, zoning misuse, subject to fines up to $12,000. Exhibit D3, pending small claims lawsuits from clients alleging breach of contract. Total estimated liabilities over $65,000. The courtroom buzzed. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Judge Patterson raised his hand. Ms. Pierce, compose yourself. Amanda's voice broke. Your Honor, my client has just accepted sole ownership of business assets carrying over $65,000 in liabilities. These obligations were not fully disclosed to counsel prior to execution. Nicole shot to her feet. Wait, what are you saying? Amanda spun around, eyes panicked. You told me everything was fine. The business was profitable. No outstanding issues. You told me everything was fine. You're my lawyer. You were supposed to check. I did ask you. You said the business was clean. Judge Patterson's voice cut through. Mrs. Harper, sit down. Nicole ignored him. She turned to me. Mark, you did this. You planned this. You hid all of this. I stayed seated, calm. No, Nicole. I just stopped covering for it. There's a difference. You knew about these debts. You knew and said nothing. I found them. You created them. I documented them. You signed to accept them. Amanda's hands shook papers, rattling. Your Honor, she insisted on sole ownership. Sole. That means full liability. Every lien, every tax obligation, every compliance issue. She turned to Nicole, voice breaking. You wanted the business. You got it. And everything that comes with it. Judge Patterson leaned forward, picked up the top page, scanned it. His expression shifted to cold focus. These documents show unauthorized transfers from protected education accounts, improperly zoned storage facilities, tax discrepancies, multiple creditor claims. Nicole's voice got smaller. Those are just temporary. Mark knows. The judge cut her off. Did Mr. Brennan authorize these transactions? Did he co-sign these accounts? Did he direct you to violate zoning or misreport taxes? Nicole's mouth opened, then closed. No answer. Your client confirmed these disclosures and swore them true. Your client demanded sole ownership. The executed settlement stands. However, given the scope of this information, I'm ordering a full review and referring the tax and compliance issues to the appropriate authorities. Nicole sank into her chair, staring at the papers. Amanda was silent. Nicole looked at me one last time. What about him? He just gets away with it. Judge Patterson's voice was cold, final. Mr. Brennan relinquished ownership. Under law, liability follows ownership. Mrs. Harper, you now own those assets and are responsible for the obligations attached to them. Silence. The judge's gavel came down once. Sharp. Final. This court is adjourned. People stood. Chairs scraped. Whispers filled the room. Nicole sat frozen, staring at the papers like a death sentence. Connor appeared beside me, eyes wet. Dad? I stood, put my hand on his shoulder. George gathered the papers. We walked toward the door together. I didn't look back, but I heard it. Nicole's voice small, broken, and Amanda's answer loud enough to reach me. It's over, Nicole. It's over. Outside the courthouse, the March air hit my face cold and clean. That's Indiana spring for you. One moment harsh, the next full of promise. I took a deep breath, the air of freedom. That's what it felt like. Connor stood beside me on the courthouse steps, his eyes still wet. His voice broke. Dad, you actually did it. I put my hand on his shoulder. We did it. You and me. George appeared beside us, leather folder under his arm. He put his hand on my shoulder. Mark, in 20 years of practicing law, I've never seen anyone handle a case like you just did. It was just the truth. The truth, George said, presented at exactly the right time. We walked toward the parking lot. 30 years of marriage, 27 real ones, gone. The house on Kingsley Drive, gone. The bank accounts, the cars, the life I'd built, gone. But walking across that parking lot with my son beside me, I didn't feel like I'd lost anything. I felt lighter. Inside the courthouse, though, I didn't see it. Nicole still sat at the table, hands shaking. Amanda was hurriedly packing her briefcase. Nicole pulled out her phone. I need to call Derek. He'll know what to do. He can help explain the business accounts. Amanda's voice was sharp. Who's Derek? My business partner, Derek Shaw. Amanda didn't answer, just kept packing. Nicole dialed. The phone rang. Then voicemail. The number you have reached is no longer in service. She stared at the screen. Tried again. Same result. Panic rising, she left a voicemail on his old number. Her voice breaking. Derek, it's me, Nicole. Something happened in court. Something terrible. I need you. Please, call me back right away. The phone buzzed immediately. A text message. From a number she didn't recognize. I'm Jennifer Shaw, Derek's wife. Yes, wife. We're still married. Have been for 20 years. I know about you. I know about the affair. I know about the money. Stay away from my husband, or I'm adding you to my divorce filing. My lawyer has plenty of documentation. Derek won't be answering your calls. He blocked your number. Leave us alone. Nicole stared at the screen. Read it again. The color drained from her face. She dropped the phone on the table. It clattered loud in the empty courtroom. Amanda noticed her expression. What is it? Nicole's voice was barely a whisper. He said he'd been divorced for 2 years. Amanda's face hardened. She understood immediately. He lied? He said we were going to... He said... Amanda closed her briefcase with a snap. Nicole, I have to go. My office will send you the final invoice. She walked out, heels clicking on the floor, leaving Nicole alone at the table staring at her phone. I didn't know any of that yet. George, Connor, and I walked to my truck in the parking lot. She'll call, George said. Probably try to appeal, maybe claim fraud. Let her try. Everything I documented was legal. Everything she signed voluntarily. Connor looked at me. Dad, where are we going now? I looked at my son, 19 years old. The only thing that mattered? Home. The apartment. Yeah, home. We got in the truck. George waved as we pulled out of the lot. Driving away from the courthouse, I didn't know Nicole had tried to call Derek. I didn't know his phone had been disconnected. I didn't know his wife had sent a message that landed like a second gavel. I would learn all of that later. Through George, through the court network. But in that moment, heading toward the small apartment where my son was waiting, I only knew one thing. We were going to be okay. And that was enough. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Small. 2 bedrooms, thin carpet walls, the color of coffee with too much milk. But it was ours, and no one could take it away. Connor helped me carry in the last box. I set it down near the window. That's the last one, I said. Connor looked around. It's smaller than I remembered. Yeah, but it's clean. It's ours. We ate dinner on the floor that night. Rotisserie chicken from the grocery store. Bread. Butter in plastic tubs. Paper plates balanced on our knees. Connor took a bite, nodded. Not bad. I smiled. High praise. He set his plate down. Dad, today, what you did in court, that was justice. It felt like more than that. How so? Like you'd been planning it for months. Like you knew exactly what would happen. I looked at him. I didn't know exactly. I just knew I had to protect you. Any way I could. You protected me by giving her everything. I gave her what she demanded, what she'd earned. There's a difference. Connor was quiet for a moment. Then the exhibits. The debts. You found all of that. I documented it. She created it. He nodded slowly, something like admiration in his eyes. That was really smart, Dad. I looked around the small apartment. This I gestured between us. This is what matters. Not the house, not the cars. This. Connor nodded. He understood. Later, Connor rolled out his sleeping bag. The beds hadn't arrived yet. I stood in the doorway watching him settle in. I don't mind sleeping on the floor, he said. Feels like camping. Indoor camping. The best kind. He smiled. So did I. Nicole had the house on Kingsley Drive. The cars, the accounts, the business. Everything she'd demanded. But she didn't have this quiet moment. A kid who'd rather sleep on the floor with me than in a mansion with her. That night, I slept better than I had in 8 months. No blue phone light at 2:15 in the morning. No sound of furniture being taken. No weight of a failing marriage pressing on my chest. Just Connor's breathing in the next room, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of cars on Virginia Avenue. Simple sounds. The sounds of home. I'd done what I set out to do. Protected my son. Let the truth speak. Walked away from a collapsing structure without being crushed. Everything else just details. News travels fast in Indianapolis, especially when it involves a courtroom collapse, hidden debts, and a con man lover who turned out to be married. Over the next few weeks, I heard things, some from George, some from people who thought I'd want updates. Week 3, I was at the VFW. Pete Sullivan sat down with a beer. Heard about Nicole. Business shut down. Creditors closing in. I took a sip. That's unfortunate. And that Shaw guy Derek married the whole time. 20 years. Wife and 2 kids in Carmel. I heard. Pete looked at me. You knew, didn't you, before the divorce? I found out. And you didn't tell her. It wasn't my job to save her from her own choices. Week 4. George called. Nicole had filed to modify the settlement denied. Tax audit opened. Vendors filed liens. The house was going up for sale. I appreciate the updates, I told George, but I don't need every detail. Understood. Just wanted you to know you're clear. Legally, ethically, completely clean. Life moved on. Connor and I kept our Sunday pancake tradition. He got a job at the library, $12 an hour. We cooked dinner together most nights. Then week 5, early April. I came home from a site inspection and found Connor in the kitchen holding a thick envelope. His face was stunned, happy, tears in his eyes. Dad, I got it. The promised scholarship, full tuition, all 4 years, plus $1,000 a year for books. I crossed the room and pulled him into a hug. Connor, I'm so proud of you. His voice broke. Dad, you saved my future. When Mom took that money, I thought it was over. I put my hands on his shoulders. No. You saved your future. You earned this. Your grades, your work, your character. This is yours. That night, Connor pinned the acceptance letter to the fridge with an Indiana-shaped magnet. Full tuition. 4 years. Everything Nicole tried to steal from him he'd earned back on his own. She took $41,200 and got $65,000 in debt. He lost his college fund and got a full scholarship. I don't believe in karma as some mystical force, but I believe in consequences. Connor built his life on hard work, on honesty, and that foundation held. 3 months after the divorce, spring turned to summer. Connor had registered for fall semester engineering program, full scholarship, bright future. And me, I was doing something I hadn't done in years. I was building something new. I was at the VFW on a warm evening. Pete Sullivan joined me with a beer. Heard Nicole finally sold the house. Had to take a loss to cover the debts? I heard. How do you feel about that, watching your old house get sold? I thought about it. It stopped being my home the day she decided it was an asset instead of where our family lived. Pete nodded. Some people say you got revenge, that you set her up. Those people don't understand the difference between revenge and justice. What's the difference? Revenge is making someone hurt because you're hurting. Justice is making sure the truth has consequences. I didn't harm Nicole. I just stopped protecting her from the truth. Pete smiled. You're a better man than most, Mark. No, I'm just a father who loves his son. At the apartment that night, Connor sat at the table with engineering textbooks, studying physics. How's the prep going? I asked. Good. Really good. The scholarship program sent a reading list. I'm getting a head start. Engineering. That's solid work. Building things that last. Connor looked up. Like you. I just inspect them. No, Dad. You built me. This? He gestured around. You built this, and we're still stand on. My chest tightened. Connor cooked spaghetti that night better than I could now, and we ate at the small table. He talked about his fall schedule. Calculus, chemistry, intro to engineering, English composition. 15 credits. That's a full load. I can handle it. People ask if I regret giving Nicole everything. I don't. Because I finally understand everything doesn't mean all. The house was wood and drywall. The cars were metal and rubber. Money was numbers that moved from hand to hand. But a son, a relationship built on trust and sacrifice. That's all. Nicole got the house on Kingsley Drive, but I kept the home. She got the assets. I kept what mattered. She got what she demanded. I got what I protected. If this story sounds familiar, if you've ever felt like you're holding up something that's already collapsing, I want you to know something. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting. It's knowing when to step back, when to let go, when to protect what matters instead of clinging to what's already lost. Think about what really matters to you, and be willing to let everything else fall. That night, Connor was in his room studying. I sat on the couch we'd assembled from Target sipping coffee. The apartment was small, the life simple, but it was ours, and for the first time in years, I wasn't inspecting the foundation for cracks. I was just living. Nicole got everything she wanted, and I got everything I needed. To me, that seemed like a fair trade. Looking back, I see it clearly. I spent 27 years building on a foundation I didn't inspect closely enough. I trusted when I should have verified. I stayed silent when I should have spoken. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're 58 standing in a courthouse to realize what truly matters. Here's what I learned. God gave me eyes to see the truth, but I closed them for years. The Bible says, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Or, I kept going. I paid. God doesn't call us to be doormats. He calls us to be wise. Love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. I learned that protecting my son meant stepping back and letting the truth do its work. And God was faithful even when I felt abandoned. When the college fund was gone, he provided a scholarship. When the house was lost, he gave us a home. This is a true story, my true story. Not from some fictional grandpa stories you hear at bedtime, but from a real man who made real mistakes and found real redemption. This is what grandpa stories should teach. Consequences are real. Truth matters, and sometimes the bravest thing is letting go. Unlike those old grandpa stories that sugarcoat reality, this true story shows what happens when you finally stand up for what's right. If this helped you, please leave a comment below. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss more true stories like mine. Your story might be different, but the lesson is the same. Protect what matters. Let the truth speak and trust God with the rest. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know below.